Chapter 28. The crowd that had gathered around the airship was impressive. Ponies of all shapes, sizes, and races had turned out to wish the trio of refugees a happy goodbye. Young Pegasi hopped up and down on the top of the airship, shrieking with laughter. Moonbow stood in front of the trio, dressed in the heavy blue robes they had seen around the city so often. As he turned to address the crowd, they quickly grew silent.
"Citizens of Totem Hoof,"
he bellowed, his voice strong and clear.
"We have assembled today to bid farewell to the team that single-hoofedly saved our city. For thousands of years, Totem Hoof has been protected by the graces of our goddess, Luna. It was foretold that one day, the Uniters would arrive and deliver us all from an unfathomable evil. That day has finally arrived."
The crowd hollered in approval and stamped their hooves. Moonbow watched for a few moments before clearing his throat.
"Please, settle down and be respectful,"
he chastised.
"Long have we waited for this day, and though we have suffered heavy casualties, the city of Totem Hoof shall endure as it always has done. Luna's divine essence now dwells within Jigsaw."
Moonbow gestured at Jigsaw, and Jigsaw bowed politely to the crowd.
"And though our city is no longer protected by the Shroud of Clouds, we shall stay strong as we always have."
Moonbow turned to the trio assembled behind him.
"We want you all to know that our prayers will be with you on your journey. We have delivered several weeks' worth of provisions to the airship with the hopes that it will serve you well." "Thank you so much,"
Jigsaw said.
"Thank all of you."
Moonbow stepped aside, and Jigsaw took his place to address the crowd.
"Your generosity is truly moving. However, I feel it prudent that I reveal something that many of you have already guessed. Tiptoe and I are not, in fact, refugees from Stalliongrad. We came from another village, underground and far to the west. Totem Hoof is the first place we've come across that has treated us with genuine kindness and respect. I will always remember that."
Jigsaw bowed and stepped back. The crowd began to stamp their hooves excitedly, cheering and hollering. After several minutes, Moonbow dispersed the crowd, gave one final, respectful bow to the trio, and left.
"Well, I guess this is it, isn't it?"
Tiptoe said quietly.
"We're leaving again. Maybe the next fragment will be in a lush jungle. And there will be apples growing from every tree, a big lake of fresh water, and all the berries we could eat."
Incendia said wistfully.
"Somehow, I doubt it,"
Jigsaw said cynically.
"Follow me. There's something I want to try."
The trio entered the airship and Jigsaw led them through the labyrinthine network of catwalks and stairwells until they reached the engine room. The claw-like pistons lining the walls seemed oddly menacing in the narrow chamber. Jigsaw stopped in front of mysterious sphere in the center of the engine room. The thick cables and tubes had previously been hanging loose were now connected and humming with power.
"What is that?"
Tiptoe asked.
"You'll see,"
Jigsaw said.
"It was unplugged when I first came down. I think it was unplugged because it drew too much power, but with all the weapon systems offline, it should be okay." "What, they designed it so not every part of the engine could be on at once?"
Tiptoe asked incredulously.
"That's just stupid." "I don't think that was it,"
said Jigsaw.
"This particular warship was old even before the fall. Probably lots of little bits of wear and tear made the ship extremely inefficient. It would certainly explain why I've had so much difficulty fixing it. I think the only reason it's held up as well as it has is because it was so close to the fragment for so long. Either way, though, it should be safe to plug in now. Probably." "Are you sure that's a good idea?"
Incendia asked warily.
"Incendia,"
Jigsaw said, his horn beginning to glow, "this is what I do." A blast of blue light emanated from his horn and the engine room roared to life. The pistons along the wall began to fire, the magical explosions momentarily bathing the room in ethereal blue light before slamming back up to repeat the process. The sphere, in contrast, was almost anticlimactic. It began to hum loudly, and after several moments, a green light in the floor that wrapped around the base of the pillar began to flash. Jigsaw backed away from the sphere.
"You're gonna want to stand back. I have a feeling it might."
The sphere made a screeching sound and let loose a wave of pale blue energy, throwing the three of them to the ground.
"What in Equestria was that?"
Tiptoe asked, leaping to her feet. The sphere was still humming as though nothing had happened.
"It's a shield system,"
Jigsaw replied.
"Now we can walk around on the outside decks without having to worry about the sun frying us. It should keep the temperature inside the shield consistent, assuming the climate control stays functional and nothing pierces the shield." What happens if we meet Tantalus along the way?
Tiptoe asked.
I'm sure we can find another alicorn statue somewhere on this ship. Incendia, that's your job, from now on.
Incendia chuckled.
Very funny. But, really, Jigsaw, do you have any plan for that? We could try ramming him, but I don't know how much good that would do,
Jigsaw admitted.
I do still have the weird goddess powers. If anything, I'd expect them to be stronger now. It could kill me, yes, but in a worst-case scenario, it could save you. Not acceptable,
Incendia retorted.
We can't stand to lose you, Jigsaw. Well,
Jigsaw said,
I'm going to try and repair the weapon systems on the way. It's possible I might have them fixed before we get there. Even if I don't, it's a big airship. I doubt he could survive if we just steer it into him. I dunno,
Tiptoe said.
Apparently he survived that statue to the face. I've been wondering about that,
Jigsaw said somberly.
I figured he wasn't gone forever when his body vanished at the castle, but how does anything survive that? What is he, anyways? I mean, he said he was some entity possessing a dragon, but why did he even let us go when we stumbled right into his lair? Why would he care about taking down rubidium? And why hasn't he just gone out and destroyed the fragments, or moved them, at least? He was powerful enough to wipe them out, but it almost seems like he's doing nothing to stop us now. There's no way we can know, Jigsaw,
Tiptoe consoled.
We just have to do what we've been doing. But are we doing the right thing? What if we're somehow playing right into his hands? Can't be,
Incendia said.
He sure tried to kill you back at the castle where you got the first Luna fragment. He didn't, though.
Jigsaw said.
Sure, he tried to kill Tiptoe, but if he really wanted me just dead and done with, I have to think it would have been easy for him to do it. He actually gave me valuable information. I think there's some kind of ulterior motive at play here. That's actually been bothering me too,
Incendia piped up.
What does he get out of destroying the world?
Jigsaw shook his head.
We can debate this all day, but I don't think it will really make any difference. Let's head up to the cockpit and plot a course.
Tantalus stood, examining the cracked blue crystal. Tentatively, he reached out a finger towards the gem. However, before he made contact, the crystal began to quiver violently. Golden light poured out from the cracks, and Tantalus's finger recoiled. The pulsing light inside the stone repulsed him. His reliance on it disgusted him even more. The gem was his physical anchor to the world, yes, but it was also painful, corrosive to his very spirit. A flash of green light behind him caught his attention. Lying on the cavern floor was a tattered strip of parchment, on which a letter was scrawled in barely legible Old World text. According to it, Jigsaw had not only managed to defeat his small army of followers, but he also had managed to commandeer a lunar battleship. Tantalus swept up from the cave and out into the mild air. It was clear that his usual methods of action weren't working. Perhaps some insidious mechanism of the hated goddesses was at work. It was time to try another route, a much more dangerous route. Tantalus reached the hole in the ground where the Philadelphia subway was exposed to the sky and dissolved into green mist, swirling into the caverns below. Jigsaw swiveled idly in his chair in the control room, staring out at the almost painfully bright, sun-bleached landscape that stretched out seemingly forever in every direction. A bright red light on the wall suddenly shone brilliantly for a few moments before a loud clunk and a low hum issued from the air vent over his head, blowing refreshingly cool air down into the room. They had been traveling for the better part of the week, and it had proven to be a dull experience. Watching the corpse of Equestria glide by below them had been interesting at first, watching the landscape change from sparse grassland to lush, fertile fields. Here and there, ruins in various states of repair were visible, towering pillars, small houses, and, in one instance, what appeared to be the skeleton of a dragon. All too soon, however, the interesting landscapes gave way to sun-baked blades of yellow grass and soon nothing but a featureless expanse of yellow and brown. Jigsaw tried to pass the time by attempting to repair the weapons systems, but the damage was too extensive to make any headway. To try and alleviate their boredom, the trio had taken to exploring the ship. To their dismay, this proved to be no more entertaining than watching the landscape below. The airship appeared to have never been flown after the Grand Cataclysm until Jigsaw took it up, so most of the rooms were shaken up as a result of the crash. None of them contained anything more than overturned furniture or silent computer consoles. Jigsaw hopped out of his chair and set off towards the metal stairs that led down into the lobby. When he arrived, he found Incendia and Tiptoe giggling about some private joke.
What are you laughing about?
Jigsaw asked.
Oh, hey, Jigsaw. Incendia was just telling me some stories from her days in Stalingrad.
Tiptoe replied.
I could use some stories, there's pretty much nothing to do up there. Computer takes care of most of the work. I think we're getting close now, though, I can.
The floor jerked below Jigsaw's feet, sending him careening into Incendia.
Ow!
Incendia exclaimed, getting back to her feet.
What was that? I think the airship stopped,
Jigsaw said.
We're here. Finally!
Tiptoe exclaimed.
But how are we going to get the fragment? It has to be over 1,000 degrees out there. And where is it? Where could it be hidden? I could maybe last a few minutes out there if I lit myself on fire, but I don't think that would be very useful.
Jigsaw nodded.
I say we just land. The shield will extend a few hundred feet in all directions. We wait for the ground to cool off and then we look around for anything that seems out of place. Sounds good to me,
Incendia replied. They turned on the spot and began to make their way back up towards the control room. When the trio reached the top of the staircase, they stopped dead in their tracks. Stretched out before them, just in view outside of the magical viewport that took up the far wall of the control room, was a huge pit in the earth. The walls appeared to have once been smooth and uniform, but time had clearly taken its toll. Whole sides of the pit had sloughed off and were lying in heaps at the bottom. Fragments of metal, possibly the remains of a walkway, clung to the intact sections of wall. Jigsaw's eyes grew wide. Without a word to the others, his horn ignited. Blue tendrils of light erupted out of his horn, burying themselves in the terminals around the room. Old world text began flashing by on the terminals and the view outside the magical wall began to flicker. Suddenly, a map of Equestria flickered to life on the screen. Tiptoe gasped softly. The map was illustrated with dozens and dozens of huge cities, all labeled in old world text. One city, in the far west, had a flashing red light above it. She recognized it instantly.
Philadelphia,
she read.
Jigsaw, this isn't. We're not. We are,
Jigsaw said.
We're above the ruins of Philadelphia. The caves. Our home.
The tip of the airship jutted out over the edge of the pit, casting a shadow the land hadn't seen for thousands of years. Incendia was standing at the bottom of the pit, watching as Tiptoe laboriously lowered Jigsaw down the deep chasm. They gently touched down on the still steaming ground and looked out into the mouth of the cavern beneath it. Looming ahead of them, protected from the heat of the sun by an overhang of rock, was the huge, metal door that led to the upper levels of the caves.
How can there be a fragment in there? Wouldn't you have noticed it if you had been living on top of it for your whole life?
Incendia asked.
It doesn't work like that,
Jigsaw said.
I didn't start sensing the fragments until after I got the first one. I still find it a little hard to believe, though, even for me. What are we going to find inside?
Tiptoe asked nervously.
You don't think they could all be dead, do you? It's a very real possibility,
Jigsaw said solemnly.
But I have to believe they could have figured something out. I wasn't the only one that knew how the water system worked after all. How are we going to get inside that huge door?
Incendia asked, staring up at its pockmarked face.
It's over 12 feet of solid steel, reinforced with magical crystals to keep us safe from the elements,
Jigsaw explained.
The history books said it was built to be difficult to open from the inside, but easy to open from the outside. The founders wanted it to be opened easily if the world ever became habitable again and wanderers came across the entrance to the cave. So, the caves were natural? They were here before the fall, and your ancestors just moved into them?
Incendia asked. Jigsaw began tapping various spots on the cavern wall with his horn. As he wandered slowly around the space, he spoke.
Yes. It's the largest natural cave system in the world, or so they say. Used to be a tourist attraction, but during the Grand Cataclysm, the founders had the idea that we could hide away from the sun underground. It took quite a while to get the water system working well enough to support the population, but obviously, it worked well enough. Ah, here we go.
Jigsaw's horn began to glow and a small pile of rubble near the door levitated away, revealing an ancient, battered-looking control panel. Jigsaw stared at the control panel for several seconds.
I don't know if I can do this,
he said, softly. Tiptoe trotted up to stand by his side.
What do you mean?
She asked.
Whatever we find in there, whatever happened to everyone we knew is my fault. If we open this door, there's going to be even more blood on my hooves. Even more ponies that died because I couldn't do my job right, and I don't.
Jigsaw's words were cut off mid-sentence as Tiptoe pressed her lips to his. Incendia blushed intensely and averted her gaze.
Jigsaw, whatever happened in there was not your fault, she said when they pulled apart. You were trying to do your job. No pony could have foreseen that sea serpent attack, and no pony could have done anything about it. There was no way to go back once we were in the subway. Thank you, Tiptoe. Let's just get the door open.
Together, Tiptoe replied. They each grabbed part of the corroded lever in their mouths and pulled. The ground instantly began to shake. From somewhere far off, alarm sirens blared. Then, with a deafening screech, the massive steel door began to retract into the dark, empty space behind it. A rush of air whirled past them, mixing with the dank, musty air inside the caves. Inside, massive gears could be seen whirring under the stress of moving the massive steel door. It was over in moments. The door stood wide open, and the entryway to the caves was spread before them.
Have you ever been this far up?
Tiptoe asked Jigsaw.
No, I never went above the main chamber. Never had any reason to. No water got up here, not enough pressure. Let's just get going.
The glass-like surface of the underwater lake began to roil and bubble. An amorphous blob of green smoke suddenly broke the surface and darted to the edge of the water. With a flash of green, Tantalus was standing on the shore, smiling down at the gently rippling water. He raised his claws and gestured at the water's surface. A green light began to shine up from somewhere deep in the lake before him. With a screech so loud it shook loose stones from the walls, a sea serpent rose out of the water, swirling, coiling, and struggling against the bands of green light that were constricting its midsection.
My, you did cause a lot of trouble, didn't you?
Tantalus said with a grin. In response, the sea serpent opened its mouth and screeched. A bright white light began to build within its throat, but Tantalus waved his claw, causing the serpent's neck to arch away from him and the beam of energy to impact harmlessly with the water of the underground lake.
Now, behave yourself. You may yet be of some use to me.
The sea serpent screeched and writhed as Tantalus dissolved again into green smoke. This time, however, it floated towards the sea serpent, funneling into its mouth and nose until there was none left. The serpent's eyes began to glow green and, with a loud snap, the bonds holding it broke and it plunged into the lake below. Jigsaw's horn sparked as he placed it against one of the hundreds of pipes that snaked along the walls. They were several floors underground now, and they had not seen a single sign of life so far.
Nothing,
Jigsaw confirmed, stepping back.
The pipe is bone dry. We're deep enough that if the water was working even intermittently, there should have been at least some moisture in the pipe, but...
Jigsaw! Incendia yelled from the darkness further down the stairwell.
Tiptoe? Can you come down here?
Yeah, sure, Tiptoe said, fluttering down the stairs with Jigsaw on her heels.
What's going?
Tiptoe's words were cut short by the scene before her. 3 earth ponies were directly in front of and to either side of Incendia, pointing what appeared to be sharpened stone rods at her neck.
What's going on?
Jigsaw asked. One of the earth ponies glanced at him, did a double take, and lowered his makeshift spear slightly.
Jigsaw? Is that actually you?
He asked, almost in awe. Jigsaw squinted to try and get a better look at the pony, in the dim light of the magical torches on the walls. He was light brown, similar to Jigsaw, and his cutie mark was a miner's pickaxe. Jigsaw had vague memories of passing by him in the market.
It's me. Now, let's just put the spears down, okay? We don't mean you any harm. We came to help.
The brown pony glanced at his compatriots, and a silent understanding passed between them. In a fluid motion, they lifted their spears from Incendia and pointed them directly at Jigsaw. Instantly, flames erupted all over Incendia's body. The 3 ponies holding Jigsaw hostage stared at her wide-eyed.
How about you drop the spears right this second and I don't burn you alive?
Incendia threatened menacingly. The 3 earth ponies complied and quickly stepped back.
What are you?
One of them asked, staring at the bright white orbs that had replaced her eyes.
I'm a unicorn with an especially special talent. Now, you're going to answer my friend's questions, and you're not going to try anything cute.
They all nodded eagerly.
Thanks, Incendia,
Jigsaw said, rubbing the spots where the spears had made contact on his neck with one hoof.
What's going on? Why did you attack me? As if you don't know,
spat the third earth pony, a burly, dark purple stallion.
You caused all this.
Jigsaw glanced and tiptoed and swallowed.
What do you mean? You were supposed to fix the water. Both of you. You were supposed to make it better.
He yelled.
Instead, you vanished, and the water stopped altogether. It wasn't my fault.
Jigsaw started, then caught himself.
Tell me what happened. If you'll let us, I can show you,
the brown earth pony, cut in.
Incendia, stay close behind them,
Jigsaw said.
I want to see what they have to show us. Me too,
Tiptoe chimed in. The flames covering Incendia's body dimmed until a single jet of flame danced at the tip of her horn.
Let's get walking.
The three earth ponies led Jigsaw down a highly familiar route. They were approaching the Arboretum.
You're not taking me to the main chamber to speak with the tribunal?
Jigsaw inquired.
The tribunal doesn't have any power anymore,
one of the ponies responded from up ahead.
You're going to see.
They approached the doors that lead to the Arboretum. The purple pony, that had snapped at Jigsaw earlier, gave the door an unceremonious kick and it swung open.
There. See what you did now.
A horrible stench came rolling out of the Arboretum, and Tiptoe yelled in horror as Incendia recoiled in disgust. Jigsaw blinked in disbelief, dumbfounded by what he saw and what he smelled. Inside the formerly lush and verdant space were hundreds of bodies. Ponies had been tossed haphazardly onto the shriveled, brown remains of the food crops. Splayed limbs and limp bodies lay haphazardly across the decaying fields of grain and wheat. Ponies of all shapes and sizes, from the youngest foals to the most elderly in the village, were strewn with little regard for their dignity.
Oh, Celestia,
Jigsaw uttered.
What happened here? What do you think?
The purple pony snapped.
There was no water. Those that didn't die of thirst killed each other to get what water was left or got torn apart by monsters trying to get to the lake. That's awful,
Incendia gasped.
You just piled them here. We normally cremate our dead,
Jigsaw said.
We didn't have the resources to keep operating the furnaces,
the brown pony said.
Everything happened so quickly. Every now and then, a trickle of water comes through the pipes, but it's not enough to keep the plants or us alive. Close the door,
Tiptoe whispered, turning her back to the horrible sight before her.
I don't want to look anymore.
The brown pony gently nudged the door with the top of his head, and the door creaked closed.
How many? How many are left?
Jigsaw asked hollowly.
About a quarter of us, holed up in the main chamber,
the purple pony responded.
The three of us were part of a team checking the pipes for any moisture. We have to fix this,
Jigsaw said emphatically.
We can get the fragment later. I can't allow this. You.
The purple pony sneered.
You caused this whole disaster. Every pony blames you for it. It wasn't his fault.
Tiptoe objected.
There was nothing we could have done. We were attacked and forced into some kind of underwater cave. We were both hurt, and you know no pony here knows how to swim. Then you should have died trying.
The purple pony spat back.
Instead of trying to save any of us, you ran away from it all. Then, you come waltzing back in here, all healthy and happy, looking to scavenge whatever you can off the dead. We don't want your help. I'd rather die with my dignity. Don't listen to him,
the brown pony said.
We've sent some of our own to try and fix the pump station, or at least get some water from the lake, but none of them have come back. He's just... We're all in shock. It all happened so quickly. We never realized how much we depended on the water supply until it was gone. Then we're going,
Jigsaw said.
I know the caves down there better than any pony else. We're going to make this right. Incendia, are you with us? Of course.
Incendia said.
It sounds like you're going to need some protection.
Jigsaw turned to face the earth pony trio.
I don't know who you are. I don't think we ever met while I was living here, but let me tell you this, I spent my every waking hour here trying to keep every pony safe and happy. I loved it here. When I left, it wasn't by choice. I'm going to make things right. Are you sure we're going the right way, Jigsaw?
Incendia asked.
Relax, Incendia,
Jigsaw said, carefully sidestepping an unstable patch of ground.
I've made this trip 5 times now.
Before long, they emerged into the cavern that held the underground lake.
Oh, Celestia,
Incendia muttered.
It's enormous. You could fit 12 of the airships we flew in here without running out of room. Like I said, largest natural cave system in the world,
Jigsaw replied.
Now, come on. We have a job to do.
The stone pathway that once led to the center of the lake was littered with the remains of the pump station. Shattered glass and twisted metal was strewn over the sand-colored stone. Far above them, in the ceiling of the cavern, twisted metal and pipes jutted out of the wall at odd angles. A constant cascade of water, the water that should have been going to the dying ponies above, was pouring out of the pipes and splattering against the stone below.
How are you going to fix that?
Tiptoe asked.
We could barely keep the pressure up when the pump station was intact, now look at it. I have an idea,
Jigsaw said.
All we need to do, really, is...
The surface of the water broke with a blast of sound and a roar. The sea serpent rose up out of the water, eyes glowing green, a light already forming in its throat. Incendia gulped.
Shit,